I'd like to take this opportunity to just say a few things about justice. The general or common tendency is to associate justice with law, and there's actually very little correlation between justice and law. Law are regulatory statements that tell us um, what is illegal and by implications what is not illegal. Um, the law, as a regulatory set of statements, regulates, it creates order. When we get to a intersection, we know who's supposed to stop because of the law, and it sets certain parameters on our behavior, such as don't murder and don't steal and so on. We think we know what is just, and we look at law and evaluate law in terms of our sense of justice. But all too often, what we are doing is looking at our emotional reactions, formulating these into opinions, such as, why should I stop at the stop sign? There is nothing around. Why do I have to wait so long for the red light to change to green when there's no traffic? Why can't I defend my property against an intruder? And so on. And if we become people with positions of importance, we may turn this emotional reaction that has developed into an opinion into a regulatory framework in which our opinion on stop signs and self-defense becomes codified into law. So the lawmaker is a person with power who is able to put his or her emotions into a regulatory statement and to organize other people's behavior. What this tells us is that the foundation for law is nothing but power. Might makes right, and the end justifies the means, because emotion is always self-serving. If we are going to have justice, we need a firmer foundation than our emotions and our ability to um, Im- turn these emotions into law because of our particular level of power. This brings us to democracy, because democracy is just another way to legitimize power. The king or emperor or other noble would, in the old days, gain his power through actual physical powers and through his ability to organize and administrate other powerful men. So it was very bluntly a rule of powerful persons who were able to put their emotions into a legal structure backed up by force of arms. But when this method is used, it tends to create a situation like hunting bucks, where every issue is settled by a um, contest of strength, in which might makes right and the end justifies the means. So we instituted democracy, which is another way of saying the group that would win a war if a war was um, prosecuted is the group that can pick the leaders. Since your group has more supporters and they're more dynamic, willing to go out and vote and um, activate the base, as it were, you get to pick the leaders. So this gave us the peaceful transition of power in a way to pick leaders without necessarily resorting to bloodshed. Not that armed rebellion was ever off the table. It can't be. You cannot take armed rebellion off the table when the ultimate foundation of your system is might makes right and justifies the means. But this isn't justice, and justice requires a solid foundation in science, in quantification methods of validating or verifying a position. Truth is not a popularity sport. We can't pick the truth by having an election. Um, Justice is based on ownership. The only question that justice asks is who owns what, or who owns this. And ownership is predicated on authorship. If we don't author something, if we don't create it, we don't own it. So democracy undercuts this, because once a group has voted in a leader and that leader has authority over a jurisdiction, all the wealth in that jurisdiction becomes subject to the administrator's power and the power of his supporters, and by extension to his emotional response to certain situations. If an event emotionally triggers him, then he can use the resources within that jurisdiction to counter the offending event. Justice is based on owners and the power of the owner to allocate or distribute or transfer the equity that he has created. It's a different foundation, and it's based on the market, or it creates a market. Justice creates a free market because it's based on ownership defined by who creates the wealth or the thing of value. This gives us a labor theory of value, because while we did not create the natural world, what our actions add value to the things of nature. It is this value we own, and it is this value we are to be paid for. This requires a different kind of setup than what we have, because at the moment our ownership is legal ownership and our rights are legal rights. They're predicated on an authority or a state assigning us access to a certain property or validating our claim to a property. And the power of the government protects these ownership of possession claims. So the person who possesses a tract of land, a mine, a body of water, and so on, they own it because the government has given them that right. It's a legal right. It's not a natural right. The only natural right you have is to what you create. So God has a natural right to what He created, which is all of the natural creation, and we have a right to the value added, and this is expressed in the labor theory of value. To derive our portion from God's portion requires the setting up of a free market, or what I call an exchange. A free market is a group of persons who hold each other accountable, and we pay for the value that's created, and we give ownership of all value that is created to the owner. So the free market assigns debits and credits accurately in a just manner. So justice is predicated on a free market, and a free market defines the operation of justice. We'll talk about how to assign values in another video, but this is just a small discussion on the nature of justice as compared to freedom or democracy. The other values that we are concerned about